Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so excited. I love interviewing live, which is something I wasn't doing for the longest time, but now in my, I think, sixth, or maybe this is now my seventh, now that we're in a new year hosting a podcast. It's been a lot of fun. I want to take no time to introduce our friend here. I'm going to pull up his intro, and then we'll just jump right into the interview. Thanks so much for being here, folks. Today's guest is a writer and speaker committed to fighting for social justice. He has written over 100 essays and articles about racism, mass incarceration, politics, gender, tech, and business. His latest book, Straight Dope, a 360-degree look into American drug culture, explores why drugs are so entrenched in American society. He is a 3-time TEDx speaker. His first talk, How I Overcame My Fear of Stuttering, has been viewed over 320,000 times. His work has been featured in Salon, Black Enterprise, Harvard Business Review, and Al Jazeera. Please join me in welcoming LeRon L. Barton.
Hey, what's going on, Robbie? How are you today, sir?
Thanks for joining me from your place out in San Diego, California. Thrilled to have you here. And as you know, this is a
Yes, sir.
podcast about building strong networks, and the context is leadership. So tell me, how do you define leadership, and when did you realize you had the skills to lead?
For me, Robbie, it's a very good question. Good morning to everyone out there. I define leadership as being able to inspire, being able to listen, and being able to sort of usher people in towards a positive direction. I mean, that's what I would like to think leadership is. Also, being a model for people. I always felt that the most effective leaders is something like them that my father told me. He said, when you're in a leadership position, never never tell someone to do something that you wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I was a leader when my work and when my words started to just resonate with so many people. It was something that I kind of ran away from, Robbie, because I didn't want that responsibility. But to quote with great power comes great responsibility. That's a Spider-Man reference for anyone that's not cool. But yeah, I just decided, I was like, well, you know what, maybe I am a leader. So I just began to just slowly embrace it.
Yeah, I can see that it's for you. It's definitely an action.
Right.
It's moving people towards something,
Absolutely.
and it's a responsibility, is what I'm also hearing. And it's
One
one that
100%.
you were not sure you
Right.
wanted.
Yeah. I reluctantly grabbed onto it because I felt that and a lot of it was just sort of a self-confidence issue. I felt that I was not why should people be listening to me? Why should I be someone out there? But like now it's just why not? Like, look at everything that you've done. Look at where you come from. Look at what you do now. So yeah, I'm definitely 100% down to be a leader.
LeRon, this is actually great because my segue is always, I always want to know more about people when they were younger. So when you were younger on the playground, schoolyard, high school, did you run for office? Were you
That's
outgoing? Were you
such a
kind
good
of
question.
shy? Like, what were you like as a kid?
You know what? Like as a kid, I was very inquisitive. So I always like to ask questions, but I also like to listen to people. I was a humongous reader. Like I read, if I was in the fourth grade, I read like seventh grade textbooks. I was that kid. I ran for a class president position at one point. I think it was like fifth grade, but I didn't get it because I didn't apply at the correct time. It was one of those things where it's like, well, if I apply late and I don't get it, it's not that big of a deal, right? So it's one of those like half-ass tries, excuse me, like sort of like a half-hearted try. But it wasn't until I realized later that it doesn't matter if you win or lose. Like I mean, you never truly lose, unless you just stop. So I always say this, Robbie. Like every day is is another chance to turn it around, man.
Mm.
Every day.
Trying to picture you. So you're this like book smart kid, loves reading, loves knowledge, loves listening to people, loves asking questions. You half-heartedly put your name in the hat for a leadership role in fifth grade, but you missed the deadline. So technically you didn't
Exactly. Yeah.
lose.
Right. Yeah.
Right? No
Exactly.
fault of
Yeah.
your own that you didn't
Right.
get a chance to really participate. Did you follow that up in future years? Like, did you take any more active roles later on? Did teachers see potential in you? Here you are, this bright kid who's
Yeah.
inquisitive. Like, did they take a liking to you and want to kind of shine the light on who you were?
Yes, sir. So there were two really influential teachers in my life. My fifth grade teacher, Miss LaRue, who was really awesome, and then my 11th and 12th grade writing instructor, Stan Banks, he's like a father figure to me. So, they really nurtured my my desires, my goals, my abilities, and yeah, they were very important.
Yeah, they saw a lot of potential, it sounds like. Now, when you were 12 years old or 13 years old, did you have any idea of what you wanted to be, in life? Was there a career path based on what your family did or what you saw in your neighborhood? Like, what was the next possible step for you?
It's funny. Like, I wanted to when I was younger, I wanted to be a stunt man because I always thought like that was cool, right? And and then that kind of faded out. I kind of flirted with being an astronaut, and then so my next role I wanted to do was I wanted to be a race car driver, specifically the Indy guys, because the Indy cars always look cool. Just like they just look so suave and so sharp, and they were all handsome, and they had these beautiful women, and I was like, oh man, that looks cool. But then finally I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be James Joyce. And so, it's funny that you mentioned this question because I was thinking about it yesterday. I have a love of ballet, right? I think ballet is so beautiful. And so there's only two types of people that I'm a little envious of when I watch them, and that's men who are in ballet, and Lewis Hamilton, the winning F1 Indy driver. I'm a writer, so I'm not envious of any writers because I can do what they can do, but ballet dancers and F1 IndyCar drivers, I've always been envious of them. So when I watch them, I'm living vicariously through them.
I don't know that those two roles have ever been compared in a sentence before
Yeah,
anywhere.
I know, right? It's kind of no, it's just something like like with ballet, man. It's so graceful, it's so beautiful, it's just so just like you're entranced. I mean, for me, I'm entranced when I watch it because there's just so much preparation, so much attention to detail, and it's just as a writer, I love writing poems, and so I really do believe that more than any physical art, I believe that is human poetry, and it's gorgeous. Like I'll go to the ballet anytime, straight up.
Well, it does seem like all the things you were hoping to be and all the things you're envious of have a lot of physicality in them, right? Like being an
Right? Yeah.
astronaut, an indie driver, right? Like, what was the first thing you were going to be?
A stunt man.
A stunt man, right? It's totally
Yeah.
physical. And
Right.
then
Yeah.
you end up with this role in life where you're having an impact, but your
Using this,
stage is,
right?
is your
Using
brain.
this and that. Yeah. Where it's just like I mean, like I love to work out, but I'm totally not like a physical dude. Like like I don't. I mean, the only sport I ever really played was like cross country running. Like any type of like physical stuff. I'm like, I'm cool. What I mean?
Yeah. What turned you on to writing? Or who?
It was just something that was just very natural to me, man. I mean, it's the easiest thing I know how to do. It's my favorite thing, and I know how to do. It's the best thing that I know how to do. Like it's one of those things where, in my household, like all of us were artists. I mean, my grandfather, rest in peace to him. He was a great painter as well as a great builder. My mother read ferociously. Like, my grandmother read ferociously. My brother was a really good illustrator. My aunt, she's a baker, but she could also draw. So it's just, I believe that that artistry was not only like sort of like in us, but it was also encouraged.
Hmm.
Like, my mother encouraged me to write, and I always thought that, I s- I say this a lot, Robbie, but there's nothing more beautiful than a pencil and a clean sheet of paper. Because like because you can do anything with it.
Well,
It's the
some
most
people
beautiful
might.
thing.
I'm not sure what I could do with it. I have one of my kids is super into drawing. He's 7,
Right
and
on.
I
That's
would love if
awesome.
he could just get lost in it and create things. And I
Right,
love
right.
encouraging that. Yeah, like you said, there's some innate talent, and you need the right environment to really flourish. Which it sounds like you had that kind of
Absolutely.
that foundation.
Yeah,
Were you
definitely.
fortunate to go to college? Did you go right to work? Like, how did you take this writing into a next step?
It's a great question. So, I went to a creative writing high school, Paseo Academy, in Kansas City. I was in a creative writing program. Um, I didn't think so. There's two reasons why I didn't go out and pursue writing. For one, I didn't think that I was good enough, and secondly, my mother, she's like, "Hey, listen, you know, you're in graduating high school, go to college, but I want you to do something that you can sort of support yourself. I don't want you to be living on the beach in a tent." So I put the writing to the side, Robbie, and I started working in. So I started doing computers. So I like delved into IT, and the thing about life is that we're always, like Jay-Z always says, all of us, each and every one of us has a genius level talent, and we're all made to do one thing, right? And so it was like, for me, like writing was always there, and I was like, yo, like, when am I going to commit to actually not only write a book, but actually writing articles? And so it wasn't until 2013 that I did that, and I published my first book, which is Straight Dope.
Yeah. It's 10 years now. That's amazing. That's
I
a
I know,
longevity.
crazy, right? Yeah, no, man, I like, it's the 10th year anniversary, which is kind of wild, but yeah, it's
So
crazy,
you basically had the 9 to 5 IT role that was,
right?
kind of, which is great. A lot of people need
Yeah,
that, right? You need some stability, income,
yeah.
regular income, but you never completely forgot about or let go of the writing in your life. It kept calling to
No,
you.
no. I mean, no, man. I mean, like, again, like that's something that I will never stop. I mean, I take breaks, but just for the most part, man, like I'm writing something probably almost every day. So
I'd love to hear more about the topics you choose. They're all like very important, very now, very difficult topics. And your first book, before the book came out, were you already writing articles on these topics? And
no,
then,
so
yeah, what led to that?
no, so no, so that's a really interesting question. So the reason why that I chose that topic. So one of my favorite writers is a guy by the name of Studs Terkel. If you have not read any Studs books, shame on you. Studs, what he would do is that he would pick a he would pick a topic. Sorry, like one of like the first book I ever read of his is that Hope Dies Last. And what it was is that the topic was, life post 9/11, right? And so all Studs does is he goes around and he just simply interviews people. And then he will just sort of like edit the interview. And what I found from Studs so much, Robbie, is just how open of an interviewer he was, just how candid these people were. I was like, wow. I mean, like there's a art to not only talking with people, but eliciting like a sort of simpler like a response. And so a lot of times writers, they will, unfortunately, they will insert themselves into a question and into a piece, and that's one thing like that Studs didn't do. And so I was like, well, I want to write a book like that. And so, my first book, I just wanted to ask a question like, why are drugs everywhere like this? And where I grew up, Robbie, Kansas City, South Side, 63rd Street, drugs were a common occurrence. And so I just wanted to get a full, clear view. That's why in the book, that's why the part of the title is like a 360 view. So I not only talk to drug dealers and drug addicts, but also people who are in recovery, teachers, people who counselors, people who have been affected by drugs. And I think the book turned out pretty well.
Sounds very powerful
Yeah,
to highlight all these very personal stories, people who are impacted, people who are trying to help those people who
absolutely.
have
Yeah,
been helped and helping others, like to just shed some light on that conversation. And of course, the opioid crisis has only gotten worse in our country since
absolutely, man.
2013, and everyone is impacted. It's no longer just something that's
No,
happening
not at
in
all.
cities. It's, I mean, literally you can't get away from drugs in our country. So your question, I think it's still a good question. Why? Why is this
Right.
happening? And who's being targeted, um, most being impacted the most disproportionately? So did that then lead to you speaking on that topic? Like, how did that go from you taking on this sort of almost a challenging writing project? Like you
Right.
put yourself out there to go and be the interviewer and gather these
Right.
stories, but then to go from that to you being on stage, how does that
So,
transition happen?
man, it's a very long. It's a gosh, what is the Sheryl Crow song? Every day's a winding road. Got to shout out Cheryl. She's a Missouri girl, so I'm from Kansas City, so um, So after I did Straight Dope, I began to write for a publication called, well, actually, like the first. So I wrote for the Good Men Project.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a it's a good website.
familiar.
Have you ever heard of it? Yeah,
Yeah,
and and so they talk a lot about men's issues, and so I believe the first piece that I wrote about was a piece about I think it was called like Chasing Christina. Like why I gave up on being a player. So I began to write about essays about myself. My relationship with my father. Then I partnered with a young lady, and we wrote an investigative article for BuzzFeed about the killing of this young man in San Jose. So that was really awesome. And then my first big piece I wrote was called I believe it was called 10 Things About Being Black in America. And it was the first time something of mine went went viral. And it just blew up. And then from there, Robbie, I just began just like writing about race from the perspective of black men in America. Now, right now, regarding the stage, I had always wanted to do a TEDx. That was, I'm sorry, do a TED talk. Like that was one of my biggest goals in life was I want to do a TED talk. I don't know how, but I want to do a TED talk. And so I put it out in the universe. God heard, and so I was found this guy who had a newsletter. It will come out every week. This TEDx is accepting applications. This TEDx is accepting applications, and so I I I I applied, and I wanted to. I was like, what is the one thing that is the most personal thing to me? And it was like, well, it's my stutter. And my ex fiance, she would ask me, why don't you write about that? I was like, not right now. It's not the time. And so the good folks at TEDx Wilson Park accepted me. I didn't even know where was Park was. Found out it was in Florence, Alabama, in the Shoals. Didn't think that I'd ever make it to Alabama like ever, but but like made it down there, and it was a very pivotal moment in my life, because it showed me that I could do anything that I wanted to do, and it's a was an amazing experience that just really just opened up everything else.
You it sounds like a through line of your story is that you put yourself out there. I
Absolutely,
mean,
100%.
even the early successes that you had, getting to write for the Good Men Project
Right,
and getting to write for BuzzFeed, those are aspirational goals for
right.
everybody else, and you were just rattling them off as like, yeah, and then I did this, then I did this, but
You
like,
know what, man? Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, it's like, so I have a thing, Robbie, like that I like to do. It's called the big ask, right? And so I try to do a big ask like almost every day, where it's like, I just ask, hey, hey, can I do this? Hey, can I taste it? Hey, can I be a part of this? Because and again, like like my ex fiance, she's so good about just like asking, just hey, if you don't ask, you don't know. There was a point where I was at this restaurant. I did a chef's table, right? And for those who don't know what a chef's table is like, you sit at this specific table for the chefs, and you watch them prepare food, and they serve you a specific menu. So while we're kind of hanging out eating, I saw that the chefs were preparing the these sliders, and I just asked one of them. I was like, "Hey, can I have one of those?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so it just showed me that, like, sometimes you have to be bold. Like, sometimes you have to just say, hey, you know what, I'm just gonna try this. I'm going to ask, and you can't be you can't be afraid of failure, because we're all gonna fail. I mean, look, I've I have a stutter, right? So I've stuttered in front of people, and I failed miserably. Like my one of my high school projects was to write a play, and the play was so bad the actors laughed at the dialogue. Like, so it's like, yo, like, I've been made fun of. So it's to the point now where not a lot of stuff can phase me. So I'm just like, oh, I'm just like, okay, all right, next.
man, being a Black man in America, raised in the city, with a stutter, the amount of resilience you have, and then on top of that,
It's
being a
crazy,
writer, which is an
right?
art form that gets more rejection letters than
Man,
acceptances.
lots. Oh my goodness. Like my first book, Robbie, I got like 29 rejection letters, and 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 I got and I got one maybe, and I was like, let me just post this myself. So you have to like trudge on. I mean, it gets tough. I mean, people saying this idea doesn't work. I mean, it gets tough, but it's like at the end of the day, you got to just brush yourself off and just keep moving.
Yeah. So, how do the people in your life sort of react to all these things you're doing? Like, how have you attracted the community, the support, the people that help fill in the gaps of things that are not your expertise as you were building this into a business? Where do those people come from? Did you already know entrepreneurs, for instance, like
uh
writers and
no,
art?
no,
Yeah,
no. So a lot of it is just simply trial by fire, right? I mean, it's we're just I mean, we're sort of operating on faith, and also operating on that. you know for one, I know God has my back, but also too, like, let's just, I mean, dude, you're right. Let's just put ourselves out there. I began once I did the TEDx, Robbie. I said, like, okay, I'm pretty good at this, because there's a certain way that I give a speech. There's a certain way that I write. I talk the way that I write, and so like my my hero Malcolm X. He always said, "Make it plain," right? And so I always thought that he was really brilliant because he was able to convey a very complex idea very simply, and not only simply, Robbie, but in a way that everyone can understand by using like layman language. Listen, we can use words like
I mean,
like
I'm just want to point out that I'm
sure,
hearing a
sure.
little bit of background noise.
Oh,
Just
I'm sorry about that. Sorry about
That's
that. All
okay.
right.
I think every time you're moving around, it's
Okay, got it.
your
All
mic
right.
must be sensitive.
Sorry.
That's all
Um,
right.
so like, we can use fancy words like, apathy, subterfuge, but like, we can also say, oh, the person doesn't care, or they're trying to trick. Just basically, like, since I'm a communicator, I want to be able to make sure that everyone understands what I'm saying, and my argument is being put across. So after 2018, and the TEDx it was just starting to blow up. I would get contacted from different people within the stuttering realm. And, I was like, you know what, yo, I think I can do this. So I hired a business coach, Erin Sanchez, pretty awesome, person. She showed me the power of LinkedIn and the power of networking. And, from there, I had to, um, I had to approach networking in in a way that felt good for me. And I think that that is a very important, thing. Like, many times we have to approach different situations in a way that fits us.
Mhm. Yeah. I'd love to hear some examples of the activity she had you doing, because I'm guessing up to that point, networking wasn't a big,
No,
part
I
of your
mean, dude,
life.
I hated it, bro. I hated it, Robbie. Like, I always thought networking was this stiff thing. You're going to a mixer. Hi, yeah, exactly. Hi, my name is LeRon. This is my car. You do what? Like, you're like, it's almost like you're just gonna talk to somebody just off of something like that they can do for you, and it's just, it was so transactional. It felt so phony. And so, what I did was I reimagined it into just building community. So, let me get to know people that do things that I do, or that do things that I'm interested in. Let me work with people that who I think that they are good people. And I can say my networking is not transactional. Like, many people that I build with will probably never do business, but that's okay. Like, for me, it's all about supporting folks. Like, if I see you doing some fly stuff, if I see you doing something awesome, then, I'm gonna share. I'm I'm gonna tell somebody about it. I'm going to, mention you in, one of my articles. Like, I always like to look at it like this, Robbie. It's all about being in a place of abundance, not being in a place of scarcity. And that is what I think is wrong with networking today. It's transactional, but also it's like, well, I can't work with this person because they may take what I'm trying to get. And it's like, there's so much room for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Thus I host this show. And it is kind of amazing to hear from where you started and what you've gone through, that you have this very abundant outlook on life. I call it the philosophy of abundance. And my mother, years ago, it's like 15 years ago, she would say, you keep giving away your time. I would meet with people
Right.
in coffee shops to help them out and stuff. And I said, well, it's like giving rides to the airport. This was my example for her. You only give a ride to the airport to someone that you consider, a friend or a colleague, like you're close enough, and you have to have the resource of a car and time. And that person would consider what you're doing a favor. And if you
Absolutely.
regularly give rides to the airport, then one day you'll need one. And not only will you get one, but it's probably from someone who didn't actually get a ride from you, but has
Right.
witnessed how you show up in the world. And so for you, it's similar,
Absolutely.
right? You show up in the world in a really abundant way. You collaborate, you support. And I love that you had this teacher, Aaron Sanchez, to guide you into that way of relating to people, which felt much more natural to you than You know,
Absolutely, man. I mean, you know, it has to feel good, right? And it has to be organic. It has to be something that, you just it's just it just feels good, man. And like, mind you, there has to be boundaries, right? So, now that I mean, I've done so much stuff for free, right? Now I'm just like, you know what? Is this worth me creating like a video? Like, for example, I'm not going to throw this organization out there, but but they wanted me to do like a master's class video for free, and I was like, well, so you want me to record it, you want me to edit it, and then you want me to send it to you, and let you approve it or not. And I was just like, I did one draft, they didn't like it, they was like, hey, can you come back and I was like, you know what, I'm not getting paid for this. Like, I mean, again, like, I'm all about sharing, but it's like, also, don't try to take free labor.
hmm
You know what I mean. So it's a fine line. And
that's what I was
so,
just thinking. Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, and again, Robbie, as I said earlier, it's about learning. Like, I used to do so many like free calls and just like, sit on the phone with folks, but now I'm just like, you know what, I'll give you 15 minutes, and then after that, this is my rate, because people will take advantage of you if you let them, which is sad. So,
Are there any like when you think about staying in touch, like you've got your inner
right,
circle of people, and
yeah,
then you have your, I always think of like a second and third layer
sure,
out or tier
right,
out, and could be someone you worked with 5 years ago that you've lost touch, or someone you see once a year at a conference. These are people, I should mention, that you like. They like you.
right.
You enjoy each other. Any habits, philosophies, or practices for how you might stay in touch and nurture that sort of wider network?
For me, the people that I work with on a regular basis, we constantly interface. Relationships take effort; they must be nurtured. I mean, that's especially like business relationships. That's something that I learned, Robbie. I think that just, send a message. Hey, what's going on? How are you? Just, want to touch base. See how you're doing. See what's up. Like, I spoke with someone that I back in October, that I'd heard from in like 2 years, but like, we just had an awesome conversation. And so, it's helpful and it's worth it to, if someone's a good person, if y'all have had a good working relationship, just, pop in and just send an email.
Do you
See
have a list of
see how
people
they're
like
doing.
that you try to stay in touch with, or?
No, I do not, and that is something that I do need to work on, though. But yeah, that's a really good idea, Robbie. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this, because I've tried using various CRMs, like relationship management systems and
Right,
databases, and they always get bloated with
right,
not
right,
the right people. And
right,
I started using, this is not an ad, folks, but I started using postable.com.
right.
They have a
Postable.
free online address book. And for a while, I was collecting addresses from like my podcast guests, and then
Right,
I wasn't doing anything with them. And then one day I was like, oh, now that I have addresses, like I can send cards. And so at first it was just like random. Now it's like every month I go through a couple times a month and I send birthday cards. If someone mentions that they're moving, I ask the new address, and I'm a welcome home card,
totally. Yeah,
like
that's
little
awesome.
things like that.
Yeah,
And now I
the
realize
personal
that
touch, man.
the list of people on this address book, these are the people that I want to be like holding up, highlighting, talking
Right.
about, sharing their stuff. Like, and if I'm not, then why are they on the list?
Right. You know what, man? Like, that's such a good comment. Like, I started to sort of prune like my Instagram, right? You're like, I was like, why am I following this person? Why am I doing, like, especially like, when you are always the one reaching out, when they don't respond back to you, like, it's, again, like, we have such a finite time in our lives to really do something. So you have to. have people around you that are willing to put in the same effort and same energy as you do. And so if you're not, and so like, if they're, if they're not, then like, why do it? Like, 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 why keep them around? I mean, there's so many other people that, you can get in contact with.
Yeah. I feel like your big ask approach to life, your willingness to ask for what you need and to sort of say, well, why not? And just put
Right.
it out
Yeah.
there. I think that relates back to this conversation too about people and relationships reaching out. Even if it's been a little bit of time, it seems like a lot of people talk themselves out of reaching out, even though that there's a good
Absolutely.
relationship.
Absolutely. You know what, man? Listen, like, we cannot like our, I always say this, Robbie, like our desire for victory has to be greater than our fear of failure. And so you you know like, why not, so I spoke with was speaking at a at a high school last month. And I asked the kids, I was like, how many people has asked for something and they've been told no. And people raise their hands up, and I was like, and but you're still alive, right? You know, you know what I mean? And you know what I mean? Everything's still working, right? So it's like, why why be afraid to ask? And for like, I'll give you a great example. I did a podcast for Slate, and Slate is an organization I've been wanting to write for quite a bit, for quite a while, years. I would pitch them stuff, I would never hear back. So the person that interviewed me for Slate, I asked them, after the interview, I was like, hey, like, I've been wanting to write with you guys for a long time. Do you have someone that I can talk with directly? She said, yeah. Introduced me to a writer by the name of Tori. We collaborated on a project, and I got published. So it's just that you can't be afraid not to ask. Put yourself out there. Like, we can't be afraid of ridicule, because the people that are going to ridicule you are more than likely people that don't have the stones to do what you're doing.
Right. I mean, it says more about them and their
Hey, absolutely,
insecurity.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I was taking a moment. I wanted to look back to see you and I connected in it looks like March 2020,
Right,
which is remarkable, when the world was like changing dramatically.
right,
March
yeah,
19th,
exactly.
2020, you reached
Wow.
out to me on LinkedIn, and we had these random, like, you wished me happy birthday. I sent information about what I do. I thank you for that. Wish me happy birthday again. Like, we didn't have a lot of back and forth conversation, but we're on each other's radar.
Right,
And
right, constantly, right.
like, little things are happening, and I'm now seeing what you're doing in life, and here you are, on my show a couple years later, right? So
Right.
I think that sometimes it takes a while to get on people's radar, get on people's
Absolutely.
pages, but to not give up, because if you had not reached out initially, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all, and that would be a miss.
Yeah, man, like sometimes things take time to nurture, right?
Hmm.
I mean, but if you plant that seed, like, if you stay in front of people's faces, I mean, and and if you express a desire,
Yeah.
like, I liked your vibe. You know what I mean? And I just thought, I just thought, you were positive. And I was like, well, he's got a show. It sounds cool. I would love to be a part of that. And I just feel like that, we you know you can. So I applied to be a part of this writing, or to write for this magazine that I had read since I was a child, right? I mean, just like, it's one of my biggest goals. And so, I'll just say it, Rolling Stone, right?
Put it out
So
there. We
yeah,
never know
right,
who knows somebody.
exactly right. So Rolling Stone has a community, has some sort of like business community program, right? So I applied for it. I got denied. So I was like, okay, why am I being denied? I know that I know that my skills far outweigh what is needed. So I applied again, and I got a favorable response. I decided not to pursue the opportunity because I just felt that with what they were asking for, it just wasn't gonna match up. But I say that to say that we can't let one denial stop us.
Mm.
You know what, like, if you apply for a job and if you don't get that, and if you don't get that position, wait wait a little bit and apply again. You like,
Yeah.
I mean, we there has to be this level of just ag- aggressiveness, if you will. There,
Persistence.
exactly, there has to be a level of persistence that if you want something, you have to keep moving towards it.
I want to give a shout out actually here to my friend Blake Fly. Um, Blake Fly is a master of putting himself out there and making great connections. Been on 9 TEDx stages. He's
Wow,
never applied to
Jesus
a single
Christ.
one. He just gets
Damn,
invited, but
damn, nine.
he's also at the big ask and about the long shot. And we're in a group together right now that he's running. And just today, he said in 3 weeks we're gonna meet and we're gonna be all talking about our rejection letters. So you got to
Right,
go out there and you got to go collect some rejection letters worth talking about. And it's like gamification of making those asks and
right,
knowing that you're gonna get some no's, but you can't stop. Like that can't be what stops you. Now I
right.
wanted to shift gears a little bit here because we're coming to the close, and
Sure.
one of my favorite questions, Lauren, to ask everybody is, a year from now when we're hanging out, catching up, talking about, whoa, I can't believe it's been a year since we did this interview. I want to know what we're going to be toasting for you a year from now. What are you most looking forward to in the year
Yeah.
ahead? What
Um,
successes?
so, not to give too much of it away, but I'm going to be in the first quarter going to be speaking at a very prestigious educational institution. So I'm, really excited about that. I'm also going to be starting a charity this year. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I hope to have been published. You know, I want to write for GQ Esquire. I still want to write for Rolling Stone. I still want to write for the Atlantic. Just I you know just I I I want to go to that next level. So those are those are three things that we will definitely be toasting about.
I cannot wait to celebrate all of that with you.
Thank you, man.
Wow.
Appreciate
Big
it.
goals. Love it. The world will appreciate you for it. How
That's
can
what's
people
up.
find you and follow your
Yes.
work?
Yeah. My website, www.leronbarton.com. That's LeronBarton.com. Has links to most of my writing, my TEDx's, my podcast interviews. I just, really cool pictures of me, like, but I mean, like, just, yeah, like, that's the central hub for everything that is LeRon Barton. I'm also on on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. So I'm definitely accessible. I'm always up for a great conversation. Exchange of ideas. Let's just keep it clean. No nasty grams. So
Well,
that's just me.
everyone should reach out to you and tell you something they appreciate about today's show because you
Thank you so
dropped a lot
much.
of great knowledge, great
Awesome.
storytelling.
Appreciate
Really
it.
appreciate getting a chance to know you. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day.